Hello, Book 2. This is Alan here for Friday Reads. I also have some other kind of like a hodgepodge stuff to show you. My um, I kind of slowed down on my reading. I had finished the James Monroe biography by Tim Mcgrath. I enjoyed it. It was he does a lot of research in the book. I had a couple of just some minor questions about it and gave it 4 stars. I wrote a long review of it on my Goodreads page, which I'll link down below. I also read started a book called Blaze of Light, which is for my NetGalley that I requested from NetGalley, and it was actually due out on the 24th of this month to be published by Monroe Press, which is a Christian press, and it deals with a gentleman, and I can't remember his name, who is a Medal of Honor winner in the Vietnam War. So this goes through his experience in the Vietnam War. Um, so you can, in Minolta Press, since you can have that, since it's a Christian press, you're going to have some inspirational uh, time how he becomes a Christian. And that is, and there's another one. There's another besides NetGalley. There's another book that I got from a company called uh, Bookscribe, and I've already did one review for that. Excuse me. Excuse me. From that company, and I was gonna do some more. I posted. I had finished. Excuse me. I finished the book of Job, and from the Robert Alter translation and commentary. So I finished the book of Job. Couldn't believe it, and and so I'll be starting. I don't know where I'll start next, and I just got this in the mail this week. This is Robert Alter's translation and commentary of the Song of Songs, Ruth, Esther, Jonah, and Daniel. I had posted yesterday my commentary review for maybe Midrash that started by Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse. And this was my nonfiction review of The Art of Biblical Narrative by Robert Alter. This is a very uh, hard book to read because it's more geared towards seminary. And basically, there's only 2 chapters you could read if you want to read this. There's chapter 5 and the conclusion. So my video is 35 minutes long. If you want to go and hunt for it. Basically, what he says that when you're looking for, you should look for reading a biblical narrative. First, you look for words and kind of like repetitive type words, a substitution of a synonym, and repetitive words, he says, may be rarely abstract, like blessing in Genesis, and entirely concrete, like stones in the Jacob story, as to move the narrative motif forward in the story. And this can also work in other types of literature. There are actions, recurrence, parallels, analogies, are in a biblical tale. There is, and he goes on to give examples in the Bible what he calls the Bible, not the Old Testament, New Testament, not the Old Testament, but the Bible, the Hebrew Bible. And there's dialogue. Dialogue is extremely important because you might have, it says, you might have short verses, long, simple verses, elaborate, balanced verses, asymmetrical, perceptive verses, obtuse, and so forth. So you might have those type of dialogues, and they can work also in other forms of literature, which you have to pay attention to when you're reading a book. Narration is very important, and it makes a point here. It says, I would suppose as readers of later fiction, most of us tend to associate the sort of emphatic on the science with narrators like those of Fielding, Balzac, Thackeray, and George Eliot, who flaunt their knowledge by stepping out in front of the proscenium arch to chat with or lecture to the audience. In the Bible, the narrator's work is almost all straight narration of actions and speech, and only acceptable in very brief discourse. And so it's, and he goes on to give examples from the Hebrew Bible of those. So yeah, this was The Art of Biblical Narrative by Robert Alter. My next pick for the, I'm going to do a video for maybe Midrash, and it'll be for fiction category. And this is the Hawk and the Dove trilogy by Penelope Wilcox. This is as you can tell by the tag, this was a library copy that I bought at a library book sale about 3-4 years ago, and I just picked it up. I just thought it was interesting, and it deals with the first two books, book 1 and book 2. You have the Hawk and the Dove, book 1. Book 2 is the Wounds of God, and what it is that you have a mother is telling this story, and to her 2 daughters, Teresa is the name of the first one, and the stories have to do with this monastery in Yorkshire, and called St. Alchin. That's Alchin, and it's a Benedictine monastery, and you have the abbot there is Father Peregrine. You have a Brother Thomas, Brother Francis, and so you're introduced to these characters, and the mother tells the story. The daughters will have something about you know, the narrator of the story will talk about how the mother will use the stories of what's going on with the abbots in the Benedictine monastery, and relate it to what's going on in modern life. Because you have loneliness, suffering, depression, heartache, not being not being accepted. That's what I was trying to say. Not being accepted, and disability, and makes it put it up to a different relatable to their situation. Book 3 in this, the mother is missing, and it's called The Long Fall. The mother is missing, and but you still have the narrator telling stories that remembered her stories that her mother says. And Penelope Wilcox gives an interview in the story saying that in the long fall, I want to give a voice to those whose voices were not heard. And in many novels and dramas, it's the doctors and nurses who are the stars. The people they care for supporting supporting roles. And she wants to give back center stage to people who have been pushed by illness, by the I'm sorry, I can't read that word, of their own lives. And it's, I think that's margins that have been pushed back by the margins of their own lives. So in the last story, you have Father Peregrine and Brother Tom distances himself after his stroke. And what you do, you learn to see the person instead of the illness. And you don't use the illness to raise the dignity of the human spirit. And that is what Penelope Wilcox says in the last book in this in this trilogy called The Long Fall. So that was it. I'm going to do a video on that for maybe Windrash. I received in mail Writer's Digest, which is I don't write anymore, and because the story wasn't going anywhere. Basically, I just kept adding characters and adding characters and adding characters. There's no structure, no plot. There's no plot, excuse me. And yeah, and this one's called the 101 Best Websites for Writers, with the title page. Yeah, and I haven't been reading anything this week because I tell you, we'll take a break. I'll be reading some Sunday at work because Sunday is a non-production day. There'll be people in the plant where I work cleaning, and they started doing this ever since the plant was shut down because of COVID-19, and it was brought back up 2 weeks later after they got a 2-week paid vacation. And so they started to do cleaning on Sundays to clean the entire the vents and doors and everything else, lockers and everything else. So, and basically I'll be sitting in the guard shack, which is a very small space. It's 2 foot by 4 foot wooden guard shack, and there's a little small space about a foot, maybe a foot and a half, little small space that you could walk in, 2 chairs, air conditioning, which also has a heater and air conditioning, and a couple windows, and there's a lot of things in there, records that we have to keep. We have an automatic door opener that we use because it's a fenced in area, and they just want certain people to be in there inside the plant, inside what they call the parking lot area inside the fence. Wednesday I was inside that guard shack, and there was a guy outside the gate. He was yelling at me, and so I went outside, and there was about 100 yards from the entrance. There was a person that was on the ground on the street next to the curb, just flopping. His whole body was just flopping. And I said, he's having a seizure. And so I told my coworker, who always doesn't go into the guard shack, but he stays in his car, it's more comfortable in there. Told him that an employee was having a seizure, and I ran to get the nurse. They had started to have a nurse on duty, and since the COVID-19 and the plant closure, when the plant opened back up, they have a nurse there on duty, and got her. She got in her van and went out the gate, and then I went and got the plant manager, who was across the street in another building. They actually have they make tortillas fresh and freshly made from scratch in one building, and then they take it to another building to the kitchen, those tortillas, and they add the ingredients, which is the burritos are a lot better because you could tell that they were fresh made rather than a regular eating something like from 7-Eleven or something a lot better. So the plant manager went over there to see about that one employee with the nurse, and let's say the security guard, I'm with another company, and the company I'm with, we cannot call an ambulance or a police department or a fire department. That we can't do that unless we're giving instructions from the plant manager or someone else. That was underneath him, another manager and our lead supervisor. That's the only people that can tell us, oh, call 911, or they can do it. We cannot do that. So, like I said, Sundays is slow. Nothing's going on. I just have to open the gate every once in a while, maybe a couple hours. So I'll spend a lot of my time reading in there. I'm still going through the Century magazine. This is published in 1888. This is I downloaded a couple of them. Then I just realized that a couple of stories, a couple of poems that I read for the May is Magazine Month that Faith and Books had put up, and a couple of these stories couple of these stories are actually one poem I put up was actually about the Battle of Gettysburg, because in 1888 it was the 25th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg. There's another story in here which I came across, which talks about the 25th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, and how you had the generals of the Union Army and generals of the Confederate Army getting together and kind of having like a reunion type event. General Beauregard was there, General Sherman was there, and so I'll be reading a lot more about that. If I can find it, I'll do a video on that. And I'm really enjoying going through the Century magazine, and I hope you enjoy my readings. So that's it, book 2. That's it for my Friday reads, and kind of like hodgepodge of what I'm doing. Take care. Have a good weekend.